Good news, the NCAA tournament has not been expanded yet, but hold tight. We're not out of the woods yet.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, July 15th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. Special shout out goes to all you everydayers that are here with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. We'd love to see you in there. And of course, the great Locked On Tar Heels insiders who are going next level with the show. Welcome in. So glad you're all here. Coming up on the show today, NCAA Tournament expansion decision was expected at the end of last week, but we didn't get one. Is it good news or is it bad news? And is there a different way we could think about expansion instead of expansion? We'll talk about that. Carolina, elite company when it comes to the three major sports drafts in America. And some sad news on Monday, the passing of a Tar Heel legend. We will remember him well with some words from a teammate of his. Also, as we get going, no Trivia Tuesday today because there were several other things to get to. But next Tuesday, Coach Rob's actually going to be on the show with me on Tuesday instead of Thursday. We're actually going to do a Trivia Tuesday together, so stay tuned for that next week. That will be Tuesday, July 22nd. Speaking of which, I got to give a massive shout out to a young man named Brooks. Brooks, what's up, dude? For those of you with us here, Brooks is an 8-year-old Tar Heel fan that got 5 out of 10 on last week's Trivia Tuesday, where we were talking about three-point shooting. Look, I know I set the threshold at getting 8 out of 10 right for a shout out, but come on. Brooks, this dude is killing it at 8 years old. So yeah, we're giving him a shout out for getting 5 out of 10 because he wasn't even alive when most of those happened. So yeah, hey Brooks, I'm proud of you, buddy. Keep it up, keep studying hard, keep working, and keep cheering on the Tar Heels. Can't wait to talk to you again. Have a great day, man. All right, let's get right into it. No decision yet on expansion. Here's the situation. Last week, there were expansion talks, as we talked about it on the show. You can go back and listen to all of that, where basically they're looking at, do we stay at 68? Do we go to 72 or 76? At some point in time, maybe even later this week, we should actually do here's what this looks like if we go to 72 or 76. I feel like that would be a helpful exercise so people could wrap their brains around like, this is how silly this seems to be. So Dan Gavitt, who's part of the NCAA, said this coming out of all the conversations last week. The topic of expanding the field for each championship, each meaning men's and women's, was discussed at length, but no decision or recommendation was made. So that's why I say, look, no news yet. There's no expansion yet, but we're not out of the woods yet. So both men's and women's NCAA tournaments staying at 68. The men were meeting down in Savannah, the women up in Philly, and they both independently came to this decision like, hey, we're not ready to pull the trigger yet. So not moving to 72, not moving to 76. I don't see any world in which they go back to 64, but I would like to say more about that part of it later. Look, this has been the case on multiple occasions now where they've gotten together. They said they were going to talk about it each time, like the last 3 summers, I believe it is. They've said, hey, look, we're expecting expansion this week. And then thankfully, it hasn't happened yet. I'm grateful for that. But it just feels like, I said it on the show last week. It feels like the can just keeps getting kicked down the road. And cool, I love that. But at some point, like, can we live with the indefinite nature of that? Like, we got to make a decision. It's very much a pee or get off the pot kind of situation. Like my mom used to tell me when I was growing up, Isaac, do something in there or leave the bathroom, right? And so that's where we're at. So the only viable outcomes it sounds like we're getting are going to be remaining at 68, adding 4 more teams to get to 72, or getting even 4 more teams to get to 76. The question is, right now. What does that mean, Isaac? All I care about right now is this year's tournament. Can you just tell me about that? And that's a great question. Are we safe at 68? Or is expansion still on the table? Like what if they do ultimately come to a decision, which it sounds like they are trying to still work at doing this summer, would that affect 2026 or has that boat passed? Well, that's a great question. Let me read you a little bit more from Dan Gavitt's statement. He says, quote, the viable options still on the table include the tournaments remaining at 68 teams or expanding to either 72 or 76 teams in advance of the 2026 or 2027 championships, end quote. Meaning we're not out of the woods yet with 2026. And that's where I'm at right now. Can we just at least make a decision on this season's tournament? Because as we sit here in the summer, you might say, it doesn't matter. They're still so far away. They can figure out the logistics and what they got to do for 2026. Yes, true. I hear that. We can move quickly. We can make logistical decisions. But hear me say this. Teams literally make their scheduling choices, the ones that they get to make as part of non-conference schedule, based on things like this. Here's what I mean for us Tar Heels, right? Obviously, Carolina has put together what we believe is a more manageable non-conference schedule for this upcoming season. It's still got some tough games in it, hosting Kansas, going to Kentucky, Michigan State at Fort Myers tip-off, etc. But it is more manageable. However, if we knew already that the tournament was expanding by 8 teams, that the bubble was going to grow by 8, I think North Carolina and other high major schools would not schedule the rigorous non-conference schedules that we often see now. Why? Because why would I? I don't even have to have a tough non-conference schedule, and I'm going to get in. I had looked it up on John Rothstein's Twitter at one point. I don't have it pulled up right now, but he had listed who those next 8 teams were last year. And it legitimately laughable at like, oh, those are the teams that would have got in if we were at 76 last year, because so much of it is about like, oh, we're going to see a bunch of mid-majors get in. No, we won't. This is to continue serving the high major schools. And I'm going to keep scrolling while I keep looking for that back in Rothstein's tweets from back last week. Because I mean, it truly shocked me to see who those teams were. And it's like, no. Okay, I found it. The 8 highest rated net teams on Selection Sunday who did not make the NCAA tournament were. So it wasn't necessarily the next 8 in the S curve, but the next 8 highest rated net teams: Ohio State, Boise State, SMU, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Northwestern, Indiana, and Villanova. So that's Big Ten, Mountain West, ACC, Big 12, Big 12, Big 10, Big 10, Big East. So 7 of those 8 are Power 5 schools, and Boise State is in a Mountain West conference that is right there at it and might as well be. So it's like, it's just going to continue serving the high majors. And so it's not going to accomplish the access of what they want to see. So Matt Norlander did a lot of reporting on this, obviously a lot last week, but some more coming into this weekend. I'll say some more about what he said in the second segment. But one of the things he mentioned is that we are expecting a final decision by the end of the month. Of course, we've heard that before. We heard that literally last week and nothing happened. So it's just, can we at least for now, can we just say something about the 2026 tournament? Can you give us some knowledge about that so that we can be settled, we can know what's coming, and we can begin to wrap our brains around this? If we could just get that, please, I beg you. All right. So no expansion right now, but they still haven't made a decision. We're going to wait and see. So the next logical question is, okay, so what's the holdup? Why don't we have a decision yet? That's the question we're going to try to answer in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, have you ever decided at the last minute, like, hey, let's head to the ball game? Maybe you want to go with friends or family or whatever it is. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize, like, man, I want to be at the ballpark right now. Cool. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And with the money that you save on those tickets, Heck, you could splurge on food, you could splurge on drinks or merch or whatever it is. Game Time makes all of that possible. Game Time really does make buying tickets more simple and faster. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last minute deals, clear views from your seat, and a lowest price guarantee that takes all the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. All-Star Game is tonight. I said it yesterday on the show, but tickets continue to go down the closer we get to first pitch. Lowest price right now, get in price is $278. That's with taxes and fees and everything included, man. It's great, great stuff. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So why didn't they make a decision last week about the NCAA tournament? Why didn't the D1 Council do that? I come up with two possibilities. Number one, and this comes from multiple different reporting and different articles, is the money. Like obviously it said like, hey, this is about the revenue, but yeah, they've still got to figure out what that looks like, what and where and how the money goes. Is it actually a value add? You get, for each win a team gets, they get NCAA tournament credits that literally brings millions to their conference. But with more teams, unless you change some of the media rights and other things, that number doesn't change. So they've got to try to figure out all of these things come together. So what that means to me, part of the delay is that they don't have the money figured out. They're still trying to roll it around and what's the best way and all of that. So that's one part of it. Secondly, you've got to wonder that even as focused in on what they want to do, the conference commissioners and others are, at some level, they have to hear all the voices crying out saying, this is insane. I cannot count the number of articles I read from media last week who were pitching good reasons not to, including the one we talked about on the show, Matt Norlander's, where he talked about the various money associated with it and some of the data behind why it's actually not all that beneficial for teams seeking access to this thing. If you want a contrarian voice, somebody who wants to expand, Seth Davis is that voice that's been crying out for it. And so you have to wonder, does the public pressure actually have anything to do with the delay? Are they legitimately, seriously considering, like, do we not do this? I just don't. I continue to be bewildered how the people in charge of making these decisions don't see the beauty and value of how good this thing is right now and how tweaking it is going to make it more convoluted and confusing and weird. Again, I truly think on Friday's show, maybe, because there's already plans for Wednesday's and Thursday's show, that on Friday at some point, I want to look at doing an actual bracket and seeing what it looks like so people can understand how confusing and convoluted it is. As part of this, why don't we have it yet? A lot of people have been saying, man, the coaches want this. The coaches are all in favor. Let's expand because the coaches want to expand. Well, some more reporting from Matt Norlander. He was down at, Peach Jam's just about to start down in North Augusta. Well, the Adidas event that happens in basically the same part of the country right before that, he was down recruiting that last week. On Sunday, he returned from that event and tweeted, quote, I'm heading home after 4 days on the recruiting trail. Was surprised to learn plenty of coaches are content to stay at 68. Some like 72. Most I spoke to think 76 is overkill. The overriding sentiment from most of the around 15 I spoke to was, I don't really think we need to change it. Coaches in this group include Nate Oates, Alabama, John Shire, Duke, Tom Izzo, Michigan State, Mike Young, Dan Hurley at UConn, Kelvin Sampson at Houston, Steve Forbes at Wake, Fred Hoiberg, Ross Hodge, and more. Even guys like Sean Miller and Dusty May, who are welcome to adding more teams, said if they keep it at 68, that's fine too, end quote. So these high major coaches who, I think a lot of those names on that list are guys that you're going to see getting in with regularity. So there is that. They're not all that bothered. I wonder if the response from coaches would be different if you were talking to coaches at high majors that might not as regularly get in, or mid-major coaches like Mountain West, American Athletic, etc., A10 schools, things like that. I'd be curious how their answers would be different. So that's part of it. But that said, it is interesting to hear from these coaches. They're like, I think we're good. And again, as I said, reading that John Rothstein list, what are the guarantees that mid-major schools would be the ones getting these 4 or 8 extra bids by the vast majority? I don't think they would. I think it would be wildly in favor still of high major schools, because that's where we're at. Now, interesting, Matt Norlander referenced Dusty May. Dusty May sent a follow-up text to Matt. He screenshotted it and tweeted it out. And Dusty said this, quote, "Great seeing you yesterday, Matt. For the record, if our objective is to possess the best tournament, 64 is the option. If we want to generate more revenue, then I'll leave that to the TV execs and the commissioners and let them decide the number. Either way, we will do our best. We, Michigan, will do our best to be in it," end quote. This is so brilliant from Dusty May, in my opinion. And here's why. I think so many of us that just love college basketball, when we think we think we want the best tournament. And the higher up, the TV execs and others think, well, we want the money. And so what he has so wisely pointed out, what he's figured out here is that it's a debate between best tournament and like maxing out revenue generation. We all want the best tournament. The TV people want every dollar they can get their hands on. And those two things are at odds with each other, because in the eyes of the decision makers, every extra team we add is more dollars. In the eyes of people who love college basketball, it's wildly different in that regard. So my hope then would be, why do these two things, best tournament and revenue generation, why do they have to be mutually exclusive? Can we think outside the box to try to find creative solutions without having to expand? Is that possible? There's always this thought in things that bigger is better or more is better. But I would push back that there is wisdom in not necessarily doing that. There is wisdom in letting something good be, in the same way that it's like, hey, we've already done a perfect movie. Why do we need a sequel? This TV series already wrapped up well. Let's not create another season of Ted Lasso that could ruin it, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's the same thing for me. Like, we've got a great thing. There's this existing thing. Don't push for more just to make more. So I've often talked about on the show, I'm a musician, right? I lead worship at church and do a whole bunch of other music things. You might see people often wearing these little devices in their ears. Those are called in-ear monitors. And those in-ear monitors allow you to hear anything that's mic'd up. You can hear more or less of that individual thing, whether it's a guitar, a voice, and a drum, a cymbal, a bass guitar, electric piano, whatever it is, you can hear more or less of each of those things. And young musicians often struggle with thinking, man, I'm hearing so much stuff. You know what I need to do? I need to just keep adding more things to my in-ears mix so I can hear it better. When in fact, the reality is the complete opposite of that. The actual better way to drown out all the noise and to hear everything better is to start either lowering or eliminating things. So instead of adding, you can get a better mix by subtracting. Ideally, that's what we would do here. Lower the number of teams in the tournament, but that ain't happening, right? We know that there's no way things are going to go back to 64. So I said this last week, if that's not going to happen, then could we not have a outside the box conversation about shrinking D1 or cutting D1 in half or figuring something else out so that we can maintain this beautiful thing we have? I think the problem is so many people in leadership are so myopically honed in on expansion that they forget to zoom out and look at other options, different ways of thinking about how we can quote unquote expand in whatever way that looks like. So I would advocate by, instead of just piling on all the time, just like with the intermix, you can sometimes create a better thing by either stopping or pulling back. But it just seems like that's not going to happen. It is a runaway train that has left the station, and we all got to find a way to get on board. Unfortunately, it just, as we always say, it feels like more of a matter of when, not if. All right, let's switch gears from basketball to a little baseball and a little bit of sad news in the Carolina family. As the MLB draft continues, Carolina is one of just 3 schools in the nation to achieve a certain level of draft success. And then sadly, the Tar Heel family lost a legend on Monday. We will celebrate the life of Bill Chamberlain to wrap up the show. Coming up in just a second. The MLB draft wrapped up on Monday with rounds 4 through 20. Yeah, that's a whole bunch of drafting. Carolina had 2 more players selected on Tuesday. Aiden Houck went 177th overall in the 6th round to the Rays. Jake Knapp, National Pitcher of the Year, went in the 8th round to the Cubs, 241st overall. Really cool stuff. Incoming transfer Trace Baker, who's transferring in from UNCW, went in the 13th round, 383rd overall. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I guess, hopefully selfishly, that's late enough in the draft that he won't sign and will end up coming to Chapel Hill, will stay. Plus, in a kind of best case scenario sort of situation from the current Diamond Heels anyway, 3 other players that Carolina was at risk of losing to the draft ended up not getting drafted. And so almost assuredly, they are coming to Carolina. Now, here's the cool news. There are 3, count them, 1, 2, and 3 schools in the entire nation that had a player drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, the NBA draft, and now the MLB draft. 3. One of them is Michigan, who, by the way, Michigan also had a player drafted in the first round of the NHL draft. Insanity. Way to go, Wolverines. Arizona is the other school, and the North Carolina Tar Heels, man. How cool is that? So football, let's go back to it. Omarion Hampton drafted 22nd overall to the Chargers. Basketball, just a couple weeks ago, Drake Powell, same thing, 22nd overall to the Nets via the Hawks with a trade. And then obviously on Sunday, Luke Stevenson was drafted 35th overall to the Mariners. Bing, bang, boom, Tar Heels. Way to go, man. Just another example of Carolina's athletic department doing big, big things. Project 28, we're always shouting it out. Okay, let's wrap up the show then, just on a somber note, but a celebratory note, because Carolina lost a legend on Monday, somebody that was part of this program who helped in massive ways. And what's pretty cool is, you might remember several weeks ago, we had David Chadwick on the show. And David Chadwick and Bill Chamberlain were teammates. And so he and I texted a little bit on Monday about it, just sharing, my grieving with him, and just, man, I hate this for you. I know you guys were teammates. And he just had some really, really good stuff to say back. And so with Dave's permission, I'm going to share some of those words today. Just thought it would be better from somebody that personally knew Bill Chamberlain, as I did not. I'll say just a few anecdotal, statistical, biographical things, but then I want to read you just the things that David sent to me, just because they're so good. So first, Bill Chamberlain, born 1949, died obviously on Monday, July 14th, 2025. You were probably well aware that Charlie Scott was the first ever black varsity player at North Carolina. Bill Chamberlain was the second. He was number 31, a forward, 6'6", a defensive stud, man. Really bought in on that, especially late in his career. From New York City, another one of those NYC guys that Carolina had. Played varsity for 3 seasons at Carolina after being on the freshman team in the 68-69 year. So that was 69-70 season through the 71-72 season. He was a second team All-American his senior year. He was the MVP of the 1971 NIT championship. They knocked off Dr. J and UMass along the way. To doing so, had a career high 34 points and 10 boards in the championship of that 1971 NIT over Georgia Tech. Crazy stuff there. Chamberlain, sophomore year, I guess it would be 11.5 points, 5.6 boards, 16 games, shot 52.9% from the field, up to 14.4 his junior year. Second leading scorer on the team that year, 57.2% from the field, 7 boards a game. And then his senior year, 10.9 points, 5.6 rebounds. Man, this one's tough. Bill Chamberlain, just shy of joining the 1,000-point club, 957 for his career. But I tell you what, my great-grandma died 5 days shy of turning 100. And we all, the little thing we always say in our family is we round up to 100. And you know what? Let's round up for Bill Chamberlain, 1,000-point club, man, honorary member of that cool stuff. Let me share with you now what David Chadwick had to say initially to me. And then I asked him for some more thoughts, and he shared those as well. So first, Dave says, "Thank you, Isaac. This one hits kind of hard. I was a year older than Bill, but we were roommates in New York City in the 1971 NIT championship, where he was the MVP of the tournament. I had a really good tournament as well, and I'm convinced that it was at least partly because of the way Billy encouraged me in our time together in the hotel. Dennis Weisick had torn his ACL 5 minutes into the first game against Massachusetts, and Julius Erving and I were the guys that Coach Smith summoned to play and start, against Massachusetts and Julius Erving. And I was the guy Coach Smith summoned to play and start the rest of the tournament. After that, Bill and I became really good friends. In Coach Smith's genius, he put a white preacher's kid from Orlando, Florida, rooming with a black kid from Harlem, and we both played so well. Man, that's super cool. I love that. Over the years, especially after Bill lost his wife in 1989, we would talk regularly, at least once a month. He became a subscriber to all my sermons, and we talked about faith regularly. I have every confidence I'll see him in heaven again one day. Life here is so short, my friend. Enjoy every moment with your beautiful wife and kids. God bless you, and thanks for the kind thoughts. And thanks for letting me meander down memory lane." Man, that's so good. Thank you, David, for sharing those with me and for allowing me to share those with everyone else, because it's so neat to honor Bill, or Billy, as you call him, and to be able to just share like those kind of moments and how important it is to cherish the life we have. The further thoughts that Dave shared with me, a little bit of overlap, but I thought worth sharing all of this as well. 6'6", Long Island Lutheran High School parade All-American between UNC and Princeton. He was deciding, really smart. When Bill committed to UNC, I gulped. He played my position. He could really jump so high, and he was strong. His number and jersey is in the rafters. Oh man, this is good. When the cafeteria workers at UNC were not fairly paid, Bill vocally objected. It caused a bit of a stir, as you can imagine back then, but Billy wouldn't relent. He was strong-minded. He hated the ostensible injustice, and Coach Smith stood by him. He told him and the team that he had to honor his convictions. We had many long talks about faith and race relations. He lost his first wife to a brain bleed, I believe. Just tragic in 1989, if I remember correctly. He remarried years later to Ernell, I believe is her name, if I remember. He was the second scholarship black basketball player at North Carolina. What I'll remember most on the court is when Billy had a breakaway in the NIT in Madison Square Garden. I was trailing the play. Bill's about a foot over the rim. Remember, dunking was illegal. He's ready to just drop it in. But out of the blue comes Dr. J out of nowhere and blocks the shot with his head at the rim. I stopped in my tracks. The garden erupts, and Bill himself came down in disbelief. We laughed about it for years thereafter. His senior season, he devoted his play to being the defensive stopper on a really good Final Four team with Weisick, McAdoo, Bobby Jones, George Karl, and Steve Previs. Good grief, that is a team, you guys. And he concludes by saying, "Thanks for letting me reminisce some more. It just seems like yesterday." thank you again, Brother David, for letting me share those thoughts. And man, we honor Bill and his great legacy. This is life. Bill Chamberlain gone, but certainly not forgotten. And David shared with me, I hadn't seen this article, but Inside Carolina wrote a piece back in December of 2005, by Jack Morton. I have that pulled up on a tab, and I intend to go read that at some point today, but wanted to point your direction to that as well. I'm sure Inside Carolina has tweeted about it. You can go find that there. But just a good piece on Bill Chamberlain and his life, talking about his time at Rucker Park. It sounds like from what David told me, until coming to Carolina. So make sure you go check out that article. So Bill Chamberlain, thank you for a life well lived. And Brother Dave, thank you for honoring your fallen brother. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. It's an honor to be part of this family. I am not a Tar Heel graduate, but I feel like I've been adopted and grafted in just through my love of the Tar Heels as well. It's such an honor to get to cover all of it. Thanks so much for being with us on today's show. Tough way to end, but a good way to end to celebrate life. Tomorrow on Wednesday, we begin our summer roster preview series. Pat Kilby will be with me, and we're talking Caleb Wilson. Make sure you don't miss it. To help make sure you're in for that, subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Tar Heels. Subscribe on all the audio platforms where you listen to podcasts as well. If you want to be part of the Locked On Tar Heels family, you can join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. That link is in the show notes. It's free to join. And if you want to go deeper, man, like our buddy Brooks we talked about at the beginning of the show, you can join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, where you get free access to all of my stats and charts and datas and all of that kind of stuff. We'd love to have you there as well. I said it, but even on a day of mourning, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.